Mm. Well, I am going to say, I think I might be having a computer problem. I'm going to say, welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you this morning. This is not our usual morning, but just having that one Labor day off was enough to really throw me for a loop. So I am on Tuesday, and yes, I did forget that my good buddy Kirsten runs her weekly Tuesday hook in on Tuesdays. So I am running over that a little bit, which is frustrating, and I'm sorry that was my fault. But the plan is to run coffee time at this time because we ended up running around like crazy yesterday, and then going straight, sliding straight into Kirsten's hook along. So good. Okay, I can see things are coming together. I'm going to give you a minute to find me here. There we go. Sorry about that. I think I logged on and logged off by accident to boot. To boot. But it is apparently possible to get here because you're doing it, Linda. You're so good at this. Thank you so much. Happy Tuesday morning. Now this is going to be confusing all week long. Happy Tuesday morning. Good to see you. Sun is shining here too. It's just a gorgeous day. Cheryl, I bet the sun is shining on the Cape because it always is shining on the Cape. Even when it's not. Good morning. Iced coffee in hand. Taking a break from cutting the grass. You are so good. You are so good. It's a good day to do it, though, isn't it? Isn't it funny? Just that one Tuesday, for Labor Day, and happy belated Labor Day weekend, everybody. I hope you had a very relaxing time. It was fairly relaxing here. We had our moments. It seems so luxurious to have just one extra day. I don't know how it is that one day can make things seem so much more roomy, but we go like out of our minds when there's a day off of school, particularly when it has just started and we're in such a negative mindset. But it is exciting and it does seem like it will last forever somehow. And then it's immediately Tuesday. How does that happen? It was a fun weekend here, though. I took Joss to Providence for the Electromagnetic Museum, which is indeed the Pinball Museum, and it is so much fun. And we go often to this place called Twins Pizza. It's such an old timey kind of a place. A little bit, it's the kind of a place where you look at it from the outside, and there's this kind of like 50s, 60s weird MCM modern shaped sign, and some of the letters are kind of missing or blown out, and it's like family restaurant cocktails. Like those are two things you don't always see advertised together, but those old time restaurants do. And you get in there, and it's like a sea of booths with a brass over the back of them. You know what I mean? Like the brass railings behind every booth, and the waitress seats you. And I had on like a tennis skirt thing with like shorts under a little short skirt because it was hot. And the waitress seats you, and you sit down in this vinyl booth that appears to have been ripped open multiple times by somebody's like pocket knife, but it's been duct taped together. Except the ends are a little bit sharp, so you have to be careful about the way you're sitting if you're wearing a skirt. This is something that I guess mostly women know, although Teddy wears a kilt. Teddy wasn't with us, but it was a fun time. And one of the belts on the car blew, and a piece of it broke off, and we fixed it. Rug hooking. We fixed it by going into my rug hooking bag and taking a pair of scissors and just cutting off the part of the belt that was flapping and making this scary noise. Thank you, rug hooking. And we managed to make it to the pizza place, to the pinball museum, stayed for about 5 hours irresponsibly, and then we made our way back in the dark, not knowing the situation with the belt, but suspecting that it was the serpentine belt, which it was, and everything's fine now. But you know those nail biting moments when something might be wrong with the car and you don't know what's going to happen? Or, for example, if the car is going to start going out of control on the highway? Oh, well, we made it home. Obviously, we made it home and we're here. And you are there. Carla, great to see you. Good morning and welcome. Rita, howdy, great to see you. Good morning. Carla says, I just picked up rug cooking. This is my new favorite channel. Fantastic. Well, you've got to let us know if you're having any kind of issues because problems are everywhere, right? Problems are in the belt of the car, on the seat of the diner. They are everywhere. But we are here to help. So definitely here on this channel, no matter what we're talking about, always feel free if you're at a weird impasse and you're like, If only I could get a yes or no answer to this question, I could get on with my life. Always ask questions in the thread, even when we're talking about other things, so that you can get your answers from this group of people who are always logged on and always there to help. So, super, super welcome, and I'm happy to see you. It has been really exciting. I was working on my projects for the Haunted Rug book as that evolves. I think I accidentally put out a confusing video yesterday because I wanted to. I realized that I had been advertising the book launch for the Haunted Rug, which is the all Halloween book that is coming out late this month, early next month. And we're having the big book party at the Red Lion Inn. Doesn't get any better than that in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, which is the Berkshires, that famous Norman Rockwell town. That's where it is. The place where we're having our book party and hook in is in that painting. It's the big building. So I've been getting excited for that. And I put out a video yesterday because I thought, I wonder if people who are beginners realize that this is a great opportunity for them to make their way to an event like this. Number one, because there's not a lot of brick and mortar rug hooking stores to get basic supplies. And there will be 5 vendors there. I'm not really going to have beginner stuff and stuff like that, but I will have all of my books, all of the Magpie magazines, probably some wool and some patterns from the book. But other people like Haley from Loop by Loop, she will have everything beginner, kits, everything you could need. So between the 5 of us, there's going to be a lot of different stuff to see. It's a set of 5 very eclectic vendors for such a small party. So I was making the point that it is really a great opportunity for people who are thinking about getting involved in the craft or who have just gotten involved in the craft. It's a great opportunity to go and meet other people and see people actually working on stuff, and be able to use tools and frames and different things before you even think about buying them. So might as well try out the supplies and try out the crafts before you buy, all of the expensive cutters and pen hooks and frames and all of that, right? Might as well go in there and see what other people are holding in their hands and using, and be able to choose some stuff there and talk to people without feeling like you are making some kind of a weird blind decision on the internet that might be a bad one, right? So I put out a beginner video, but I feel like it was almost too exclusively beginner because a lot of people wrote and said, "Oh, is it not okay for people who aren't beginners?" And I thought, shoot, I didn't do that well, did I? So I'm going to put out both a sheet in our Facebook group, which is Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club. I'm going to put out the regular flyer again, which says who the vendors are and shows some of the stock that's there. I'm in the middle of putting together a video of fusing some snips from some of the vendors who will be there, saying this is what I'm bringing, can't wait to see you kind of stuff. But I will also put out a second document that maybe you'd be kind enough to share if you have local library, historical society, and you're anywhere near that corner, the western corner of Massachusetts, for the Berkshires, anywhere near there. I'm going to put out both documents, one that's general public and one that's specifically for rug hookers. And if you see an opportunity in your area, if you're anywhere near me, to post it so other people know the event is happening, let's bring those old hookers and new hookers to the event, and let's have a great time together. Oh, Carla, you are in Lufkin, Texas. That sounds like a pretty place. Everyone is headed to Texas right now for the ATHA Biennial. It's happening well, it's not a biennial, it's a convention, sorry. So that is happening in Texas this year near you. A lot of my buddies are on their way there right now. I can't wait to hear more about it. Oh, Diane, great to see you. Reminder, Diane, you reminded me, for those of you who are in, not our book club is great and happening, and the next book is Indigo Girl. So make sure that you've got that in your hand or on Audible or whatever so you can join in for the next book club meeting. It's like a reader's book club meeting. And that is happening on Indigo Girl by Natalie Boyd, is happening on Tuesday, September 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But tonight, we are picking up our writers group again. If you're a person who feels like you have a book in you, particularly, it doesn't have to be exclusively a rug hooking or rug making book. We've been gathering informally, and it's not like you miss a date. It's like you log on when you want. Talk about our ideas, talk about how our book projects are shaping up, if we've even started them yet, kind of walking into it like trying to get a horse in a stall, right, at a stable, kind of pushing each other into our stalls to say, this is what you need to do next. Your idea is great. Table of contents, maybe something like this. That's my idea. What's your idea? What's your idea for my project? I'm at a weird speed bump, help me. So we're helping each other working on book projects that might be for this year or might be for a decade from now. But people who want to work on book projects and have a story to tell, that group is on Facebook called Ribbon Candy Writers Circle. And I just posted in that group the Zoom information for tonight at, I think I said 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. So if you weren't aware of that yet and you're thinking, oh, I have a book in me, I know I do. I don't know who to talk to about publishing and how to make it happen, and you're not on Facebook, send me an email at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com and I will send you the log information so you can log on tonight. You don't have to talk or give your ideas up if you don't want to. If you want to chat, you can. If you want to listen, you can. And you can always chat some other time when the idea you have has got more of a shape, right? So no rush. All righties, let's see. Catherine, great to see you. I love the images you sent for the Haunted Rug book. I am so loving them. Oh my God, it has been so nice in California by the sound of it, but you have got a Friday forecast coming at you at 190 degrees. That really is extraordinary, isn't it? Oh, Carly, you said I'm using t-shirt strips, what I have. Fantastic. I think that's fantastic. I noticed there was a thread, and I couldn't find it. I was only seeing the comments because in the Facebook group, right, Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, it's my group, but Kirsten does most of the admin. Barbara does we have other people do most of the admin. I rarely check in unless there's an issue happening because of busyness. But I did notice while I was approving comments that there was a thread that seemed to be a small kind of a thing. And I I couldn't find the thread quickly, and I had to come and log on here. So what I wanted to say was it seemed to me, and again, I couldn't find the thread quickly before I started the show, but it seemed to me like the question in the thread was, it must have been something like, should I be cutting up stuff from Goodwill, like in thrift stores? Should I be cutting up clothing like skirts and stuff to do my rug hooking? And from the comments I was seeing, I was approving them because everybody's correct in their answer. But most of the answers by far said, I wouldn't bother with thrift clothing, too much of a headache, can't deal with it. And that is a perfectly viable answer. That's why there are shops like mine that sell like milled wool that's been dyed in every possible color and does all the color planning and all of that stuff. That's absolutely a viable and a great route to go if you're approaching rug hooking and you're looking for wool. But I was kind of sad and sorry that it didn't seem like many people were saying, hey, this craft got started with someone bending a nail and sticking it into a piece of wood and cutting up old clothing, and those rugs are gorgeous and glorious, and they never will be anything but gorgeous and perfect. So we can easily hook today the same way that hooking began. It is an option to buy stuff at stores, It's an option for me to buy stuff at Trader Joe's, right? Or I can grow it in the garden. Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon. It's a nice lofty kind of pipe dream, but there's 100 ways to do everything. And in this case, none of our ways are not a moth. None of the ways are wrong. But I think it's important to keep promoting the idea that this always was and will be a thrift craft. And while I buy a lot of milled stuff and I use a lot of my wholesale door mill wool that I dye, I use that often in my hooking. I also use a lot of other stuff. And coincidentally, I didn't mean to do this, but I happened to put a pile of stuff on this table for myself for later. And since my mouth is running along these lines, I just want to show you what I pulled because I feel like I need to stop making my own projects for the Haunted Rug book. I had a bunch that I didn't get to, but there's over 100 patterns in there already. And they are gorgeous. And I don't know that I need like 130. You know what I mean? So I'm going to see how it goes. And I'm putting together the text of the book now. Even though I made that deal with myself to like leave off the hooking for a while and get back to editing the book, I was cleaning or at least organizing my studio in Bethany the other day outside of the house yesterday, and I found this pile of stuff that happened to be sitting near each other, and I was like, be still my heart. I know you know this feeling. This was just sitting almost like this on one of the 40 shelving units that I have. And I don't know what I was thinking. I think I just literally threw stuff from across the room and it happened to land near each other. And I thought, this is a great color plan for hooking something for Halloween. I have got this coat that is so cute that I bought when I was in the Netherlands, Boutique Echo. It is a beautiful all wool little coat, right? It's lined with gray. It's got gray background, kind of watercolory, and all these pretty pink flowers. But I'll tell you what, right now, I mean, unless something has happened, I have been running lately. Um, yeah, I don't think that much has happened. You see what I'm saying here? 10 pound sausage in a 5 pound sack, right? So I could do one of these and like both arms would split up the sides. I'm not going to do that. I think instead of being angry and going on a punishing diet and running more and blowing my hips out more, I think maybe I'll just cut this jacket up and use it for a beautiful piece because this is absolutely gorgeous and warm wool. So I had that little piece, and I'm gonna take all those cute buttons off too, because God knows when I can use those, but you know I will eventually. And then I found this nice piece of wool, and I don't know where I got this either, but it is like a little checkered wool. Has that great 80s feel. I feel like I need some Converse like racing sneakers, right? And yeah, a couple of Swatch watches, and I'll be good to go. But I thought this is real pretty. It's purple and white, and I was thinking, oh, that's going to be a bear to hook. But the way that it feels, because I'm used to touching stuff and feeling it now, and you will be too if you're a beginner and you're going to thrift stores and going, I don't even know. I'm doing like this, like I know what I'm doing, and I don't know what I'm doing. Eventually, you will know what you're doing. Fabric always surprises you, though, right? It always has the potential to surprise you. Sometimes you look at something and you go, oh yeah, no, that's great, and then you start hooking with it, and it's a total nightmare. Or sometimes something looks like the perfect material to hook with, and you start hooking with it, and it just doesn't work out, and you just don't know why. So that was really pretty, but here comes my favorite. I don't know if you'll be able to see this online, but it is a grape purple, like a Concord grapey, and there are blues, and I don't know if it'll come into focus. It's weird because yeah, it's just like a herringbone feel, but there are lots of crazy colors in there that I think are super punchy and fun, and there's a lot of green in there too, but I just thought it's so dark, light, dull, bright, right? This is a dull, but it's got so much more happening. And then this little pair of pantyhose, right, that I dyed probably for some Fourth of July project that I didn't end up doing, or I didn't end up using it anyway. So pantyhose, and Rita, thank you for the ones that you sent me. Yeah, with just some different blues and reds, but it happened to match really well with that. And where the blues and reds meet, got some weird muddy purples, which I thought would be a lot of fun. Green screen is playing up a little bit here, but it's an oddball pile, and none of that is milled wool from the store. So when I work on this project, I will have just as much fun, I hope, playing with these. Some of them might play me a little bit and fray as I go, and if they do, I'm not going to cry myself to sleep, and I probably won't set anything on fire. Can't guarantee it, but that's not the plan. I'll make it work. And if it's all frayed and the surface is all crappy, I'll probably just cut it with my flat scissors, and it'll be absolutely beautiful. And if anything gave me a hard time, you probably won't even know. So it's amazing what you can find, and it is a lot of fun if you are kind of a magpie person to find stuff and cut it up, right? Because why not? It's also fun to go to stores where everything is all ready for you and you're surrounded by color and expense. It is fun when you can afford to buy a bunch of stuff and take that home and build your hoard that way. I mean, stash. So both ways are correct. And I just like to see both ways represented every time that conversation takes place, because I feel like it is a bit off-putting to beginners and to people who approach the craft because it is a thrift craft. And then see people kind of like naysaying and against the idea of actually thrifting. So it's both. It's adorably and eternally both. And yeah, I got to spend more time saying that. Diane says, "Hey, have you ever thought about selling tickets to the October book launch, hook an event for us out of state or across the world? Let's call it a fly on the wall ticket." Interesting. Broadcast on YouTube or Zoom. That's an interesting idea. Because this event is, I'm being very pedestrian here, but the event is expensive, and I already booked it, and I knew it would be expensive, but I wanted to do it because it's such a big deal to me. Interesting. That could offset some of the expense that I'm absorbing for like the room and stuff. Interesting. You know what? I'm going to think about that, Diane. That's a great idea. Um, you know, um, I should probably just put it up online and not sell tickets because, um, yeah, I like to do videos, and I don't like my stuff to be behind paywalls in general. But yeah, so I'll think about it. But I think I will definitely do videos there. But I don't know if I'll make people pay for them. Um, and I'm such an awesome business person, right? But what I did think was I might put swag bags up for people who can't come to the party because I don't want to do any spoiler alerts. But these swag bags, I'm sorry, mwah, mwah, I'm totally tooting my own horn. But these swag bags are fantastic. There are two tools in there that are completely unique that you will never be able to buy somewhere else. At least the way that they are in the swag bag thing. There's a pattern. There's a few other little fun things. It's a very fun swag bag. And I don't even want to hint more about it because I racked my brain, emptied all of my thought energy to come up with ideas for stuff that other people haven't done or seen before. So I'm not doing like the printed tote bag. I'm doing some different stuff that I think is super practical and blingy and fun for Halloween. My sister wants a rug hooking kit supplies. Somebody asked me yesterday about kits for punch supplies, and I realized how badly I need to go over the website. So I mean, that's going to be my first project as soon as this Magpie is out the door, which we're I think printing it today, and that'll take no time at all. And and the Halloween book is done. I think I'm going to go back to the because there are a bunch of great beginner kits, and the ones I suggested for beginners were one that 100 people have done, but I haven't finished, and I should really put a better photo in the web page. Rock candy. It's also called River Rocks. The small version is called River Rocks. The large one is called Rock Candy. It was one of the designs that my daughter Jocelyn did. It's an abstract with circles. It almost looks like rocks in a river. But when I did the rock candy one, I was doing it in candy colors maybe a couple of Christmases ago. I've seen it done in every combination. It's abstract, but it has like a landscape feel to it. You can go anywhere with colors. It can be kitted or not kitted. It's a great project to do. And then I suggested other ones that are seasonal, like Trick or Treat Tapestry is all wool. One of the older patterns, if you haven't done it, is another small pattern and great to practice on. It's an all wool pattern, but it could be hooked or punched. It's called Native Tom. So it's not like a Thanksgiving Macy's Day Parade traditional turkey. It's more of like a Native American looking wild turkey. And the color is very subjective and it has a modern look to it, a sketchbook quality to it. So I thought those were three that really stood out as great beginner patterns, but I have lots of other suggestions. I always say when someone asks for a beginner pattern, like tell me something about yourself. Do you really like primitive stuff or do you like stuff that's more realistic? Do you like traditional stuff or do you like stuff that's really modern? Are you into the holidays or not at all? So that I can get a feel for what that person likes and then I can make suggestions that might actually be good matches. So that's exciting, Diane. Jessica, great to see you. It's a beautiful and cool day in sunny Ohio. Great. That sounds like a great forecast. I'm very happy to see you there. And Jessica says, I love those colors. I found 21 skeins of wool medium weight yarn at a thrift store Sunday for a couple of bucks. Lots of colors. You're thrilled. I would be thrilled too. That sounds amazing. Amazing. Rita says, yes, I want a swag bag and I can't come because my hubby's having cancer treatment. Oh, God. I'm going to get those swag bags up. They're going to be so much fun. And they're not like, it's not like they're free at the event. So it's not like it's a crazy stuffed bag, but the price will reflect that. But the things that are in there, and you'll know what I mean when you see them. One of them I'm making that's an excellent tool. One of them I had made that is a tool everybody needs, and you're going to love it. It is unique to this book project. I'm super excited. Oh my God, and then there's a third one. I forgot there's a third one that we are making part of. Anyway, there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit in there. I take it back. And it's all fun stuff. For Christmas. Diane, for Christmas, let me see. Rock Candy is a cute one. Um, I have a bunch of Christmas ones. She's a beginner, right? She hasn't done any yet. She's not returning, but she's totally starting. Let me look at the Christmas ones. I'll give you some really good feedback on that because there's a lot of Christmas ones. Haven't thought about them though lately because I've been stuck in Halloween. In the best possible way. So that is coming along so nicely. The chapters are coming along so nicely. Just a reminder to people who did hooking for the book. If you want to send me a photograph of yourself as a child for Halloween or your children or grandchildren or your pet, if you want to send me a Halloweeny type photo for your chapter, if you have an image in this book, if you hooked one of the patterns, you have a chapter. So I'll put text in if there's not enough text. But if you want to add any text of your own, oh, I chose this piece because it reminded me of that one Halloween, or you want to put in photos, I would be so happy to have them because it is your chapter. So we have over 100 chapters, and it's not the all me show. If you want to send your stuff, make sure. I'm sure you can hear Buttons the dog. Make sure that you send it because I would love to have it. Ribbon candy hooking at, I'm sorry, Deanna at ribbon can, I'm sorry, ribboncandyhooking at gmail.com. There we go. All right. Also, I started brainstorming a list I will share with you next time, and next time will be Sunday because I'm out to a concert on Friday. Oh, I'm telling you. Um, so I won't be here on Friday, but we'll do our gallery night on Sunday. So make sure you're also sending me your gallery pieces to share, not for the Haunted Rug Book, but separate stuff. Haunted Rug Book is still a little bit under wraps. I'll put one or two into the gallery show, but I don't want it to be all haunted rug stuff because then the book will be anticlimactic. But we will run gallery night on Sunday night, and that will be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And at that time, I might start the show with a quick little laundry list. In my head, I was brainstorming with my husband, and we were talking about things that would be nice to have into the next Magpie Times marshmallow world. And one of the things, just to plant the seed, one of the things that I would really like to have, I have lots of ideas, and I already have lots of great content coming in, and we will take lots more. By the way, the issue that's about to come out is unbelievably great. I'm beyond excited about that. And the next one, I'm sure they will all follow suit. But the next one is the winter issue, which means it's a holiday issue. Now, I want to celebrate all of our different holiday traditions, right? I grew up going to Catholic school. I celebrate Christmas, and I know not everybody does. And if you celebrate something different, right? Like maybe barring like Seinfeld style holidays, or maybe not, maybe not. I want to celebrate your holidays too. So will definitely be looking for stuff that is for Hanukkah and Kwanzaa. And if there's other holidays that could be represented that are winter holidays, that we could all be inspired by the traditions and customs and the beauty of those holidays. Like I started reading about Kwanzaa because I didn't know anything about it. Um, and I was reading about it was something like the seven blessings or something like that, the seven candles for seven blessings, something like that. It was so, I was listening to it while we were driving the car and the belt had just gone. So I was doing like a white knuckle driving thing and my husband was reading off the phone. So I didn't quite grasp all of it, but what I heard was absolutely beautiful. And I thought, oh, there's a rug there. Same with Hanukkah, but I don't feel like I am particularly well equipped to do designs for holidays that I have never celebrated myself. I would love to piggyback and celebrate your holidays, but I don't feel like I'm the right person to do content for holidays that we don't celebrate in our family. If you celebrate different holidays from us or you celebrate Christmas as well and you have an idea, please let me know because I would love to represent lots of different holidays and lots of different customs also from around the world. And within different sort of religions and the whole winter season. So in other words, not just Christmas. So if you feel like you're a good person to contribute an article, in that vein, that would be a great relief because I would feel like I was overstepping it if I tried to venture, a little touchy, right? A little touchy. You get what I mean? An idea for you, these Quilito. Oh, I'm gonna skip that comment because, yes. So I'm not gonna say it out loud because if you're reading it, you saw the comment and maybe that hit a little close to home. So I'm gonna leave that one out. And if you can't read the thread, there will be at least two huge surprises in the swag bag. You're a good guesser, Diane. I'll say that you are a good guesser. Okay, just catching up on the comments. It's great. It's great to see everybody. Now, we want to continue today with the segment we were working on last Monday, right? Because we did the new Rug Hooking magazine on Friday. We were looking at this book by one of my favorite authors, Nina Fletcher Little. Nina and her husband lived at this exquisite house called Cogswell Grant, which is in Ipswich, Massachusetts. And I've been there, and we took a tour group there a few years ago when this brand first started. And talk about a lot of great rugs in one place. My God, it was riveting and exciting. They were collectors of all things that were sort of early American and specifically folk art, not early American folk art. And one of those things was hooked rugs. They collected them in huge numbers. So while this is one of Nina's sort of academic works, right? This is about floor coverings, not rugs, floor coverings in New England before 1850. So we are not talking about hooked rugs, right? We are talking about what came before. We are talking about the granddaddies of the hooked rugs and the painted rugs and all of that stuff. Um, so, different styles of rug in this issue, but it's a heavy history issue. So, some people love that. Some people can't stand it when I do this. But today we are going to kind of regroup and catch up with Nina where we left off last time. And this will be a heavy history episode, but it is a lot of fun and I think useful to know where you came from. And that's what this book tells us. So, I'm going to walk you back into where we left off last, I think it must have been Monday, right? She was talking about the surprising fact that if we're talking about late 17th century New England, right? So the like 1670s, we are a little bit past like the early, because we're starting in the 1620s, right, with settlement. We get to the 1670s, it is 50 years later. It is essentially two generations later, maybe even three at this time. So it is quite a while later. And some things have changed, but many things have not. Because right through the 17th century, there were all kinds of dynamics happening in settlement areas. And what was happening in New England was kind of my specialty when I used to be a tour guide. But what was happening in other places, I'm less knowledgeable about. I will say that in New England, there were lots of areas where there were struggles, right? There were struggles with people who were already living here and had every right to be here, the people, the native, all of the tribes that were here before. There were struggles in lots of places with that dynamic and making things work, so let's not even go there, right? But there were also a lot of areas in New England where contracts were signed between local tribes who were small and did not want a war with other tribes and did not want a war with anybody. There were lots of regions where contracts were signed between Europeans who arrived to say, listen, you can live here right next door to me. We'd appreciate it if you didn't mate with our women, right? Because that was a thing for a long time. But you can, fish in our streams and we'll show you our stuff and you show us our stuff, your stuff. And I'm not saying it was completely companionable or great, but there were some regions where living side by side was symbiotic and absolutely mutually beneficial because, particularly with smaller tribes in remote regions, they were like sitting ducks for larger tribes that would come through and absorb them in the worst possible way. So during these early years, there's a lot of stuff happening in terms of society that is a struggle, right? And people are figuring out about oh, should we cut all these trees down? Like in England, we weren't allowed to, right? We were rationed. Can we cut them down here? But what if we cut them down? Then are we going to be all out? We still have to cook our food and heat our houses. They were figuring out everything. Who knows how to build a doorway? Who knows how to make a better table, right? Who knows how to make furniture that has three different purposes? Give me a furniture that's also a storage unit and a chair because we don't have big houses. They were figuring out a lot of stuff at that time. So you don't expect them to be bringing all kinds of luxury items from, for the most part, Europe, right? And they weren't. So it wasn't a surprise to know that in the 17th century, there aren't carpets down, and that would be carpitt. How cute is that? But reading the text for the book, Nina tells us that as late as well into the 1700s, so we're talking about another 50 to 75 years, there's hardly any carpets at all. And when we do see carpets at all, when we do see carpets in inventories, which is like rare as hen's teeth, they're not being used on the floor. They're being used on beds and tabletops. So very, very different. It is not really the era of the carpet yet. Although in the 1700s, and this is where we left off, she talks about wealthy people wanting to start importing Oriental carpets. And obviously Oriental is like a blanket phrase for all of the carpets that came out of Eastern countries, right? Starting with Turkey and going further east. So that's where we left off. We were talking about British looms and how rugs were being made. But as we get a little bit, right, in the 1700s, 1720s, 1750s, people want rugs. Maybe they're in a place where they can afford a rug, right? There's no national currency yet, right? Before the revolution, there's no national currency. One of the things that England could do to people who were living in the U.S., who they regarded as their subjects, and rightly so at that time, because they were providing border security by having people stationed in all of the different settlements for protection, right? So they were providing services as well, to be fair. But as soon as we get out of it, and there wasn't currency, right? We were still using the pound, um, which included pennies and shillings. So even if we wanted to say, let's talk about how much rugs cost at this time, it's a very hard thing to figure out for me, at least, because we aren't talking pound to pound. We're talking about shillings and pennies to a pound, and it's lots of moving parts. Um, I hear somebody's phone ringing. Sorry about that. So as soon as we get to a place in the settlement years, in the 1700s, when people were in a place where they're like, okay, the house is good, the door shuts, it has a lock on it, we have what we need on the inside. The windows are no longer a piece of paper that's waxed with pig fat and grease. We've got like a normal house happening here. Let's buy some rugs. As soon as they kind of hit that point in the timeline, we started having real problems with England, and they were the ones who were making carpets on looms. So that's a problem, right? So we continue to not have so many rugs here at that time. Now, we were looking at our slideshow on, sorry, I'm just looking at some of the things that I bracketed off. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. I bracketed this off for some reason. Um, and Nina gives such thorough history because she was, they were very, very wealthy, right? The Fletcher little Fletchers, the Fletchers. They were super wealthy, and they were great kind of humanitarians and philanthropists, and they cared a lot about the history of folk art and collecting, and they could afford to collect. But they didn't just collect and buy stuff up and say, more for me, I lock it in my house and in my cupboards, yeah, sucks to be you. No, they did tons of writing and research on all of the different subjects they were interested in, from rugs to lamps to hat boxes, so many books between them. So she writes in this. We're still talking about this very, very early period in the true lack of any floor covering. Um, so she writes. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me find. If one is interested to learn how these long strips were prevented from slipping off the treads. Okay, wait a minute. Let me back up a little bit. The Boston Newsletter advertised carpeting for stairs imported from London in 1761. Right? So we have another decade before there's going to be any kind of embargo, and we're not going to be able to trade anymore. So Boston is advertising what sounds like a stair runner in 1761, as did the Boston Gazette, right? So advertised in two places in 1762. That's really early for ads about stair carpets, isn't it? Wilton stair carpets were offered for sale by William Jackson at the Brazen Head in Cornhill in 1771. The Brazen Head would have been a pub, a tavern. Oh, come on. You know you want to time travel. You know you want us to time travel together to Cornhill in 1771 to walk through the door and have one of those insanely potent early American cocktails. And yeah, I think they were already called that. No, not till the 20s. No, I'm wrong. Not till the 20s. But they did have, what was that stuff? Flip, right? That you would make yourself. You take out your little pouch of nutmeg and sprinkle it into the beer they gave you that would have been hot from, holding it over the open fire. And then you would maybe crack a raw egg in, sprinkle some cinnamon. You would have to bring your own nutmeg because it was so expensive. That's why Connecticut's are called nutmeggers, because one of the most common peddlers coming through Connecticut sold nutmeg. And there were lots of people selling fake nutmeg that was just a carved wooden circle. But we would be there, right, ourselves at the Cornhill time traveling. And here is this man who's laying out these carpets on the tavern table. Now that's a good day. That's a good day. Even in our dreams, that's a good day. So he's there at the Cornhill. If one is interested to learn how these long strips were prevented from slipping off the treads, right? meaning how are they being held down, right? Is it a slide or is it a carpet? A method still in use after 200 years was advertised in 1767 by the New York City James Byers. Okay, so in New York City, that sentence is awkward. A person called James Byers had an ad that said, quote, brass rods for fixing carpets to stairs. A choice was offered in Philadelphia in 1796, stair carpet rods and staples, brass or iron. Interesting, right? So long carpet runners. I'd be curious to know how much, but again, it would be apples and oranges. We would hear a number and it wouldn't mean much to us without doing a lot of tricky math. In the meantime, some of the urban and most of the rural population continue to live with bare or sanded floors. And it doesn't mean sanded, it means sprinkling sand, right? So you don't trip and there's like just another layer of insulation, and it actually keeps the floor somewhat clean, right? Weirdly. So sanded floors until well into the 19th century, or depended upon a few homemade rugs, or a house would depend upon a few homemade rugs to provide warmth and a modicum of luxury in their best rooms. One William Wheeler was advertising scouring sand for floors. The larger the quantity, the less the price. Oh, he's doing a little bit of early wholesaling there. And he advertised that in the Boston Newsletter of 1746. 50 years later, things had not changed in many small New Hampshire communities when Charles Charlton Coffin recalled the town of Boscawen in 1800. He describes it like this: the women go about the house in their petticoats while doing their work, but dress themselves up in the afternoon to receive visits from neighbors and friends who are invited into the front room. The word parlor has not come into use yet. Carpets, except here and there, one of home manufacture, one of home manufacture are unknown. So rugs are of home manufacture are unknown. In summer, green pine boughs adorn the fireplace and fill the room with fragrant odors. The floor is strewn with clean white sand gathered from the shores of great or long pond and swept into curved lines, scrolls, and whirls by a broom. How interesting is that? I read that awkwardly, but did you catch that? They are putting in the summer, in the warmer months, and this is the same in taverns. In the colder months, they have the fires lit for food and warmth, right? So it's like double use. When you are not wanting to use your fireplace because it's hot, you want to cook somewhere else, right? Or eat stuff that's cold, or cook outside. You're still going to fill your fireplace with flowers and boughs of greenery because the house stinks and you stink. Sorry, but you do. So that's the way it is. But one of the really creative and decorative things that's happening is they're buying sand. They're putting sand on the floor so it's not slippy slips, right? And to make it look prettier than just like a beach, right, on the floor, they're using brushes like brooms as they sweep to make patterns in the sand. How adorable is that? That really is something. Edward Jarvis, reminiscing about Concord, Massachusetts, that is one of my favorite places in the world, in the early days wrote in 1880, so 100 years later, now there is hardly a house without carpets on all or nearly all the rooms. Many years ago, the kitchens and perhaps sitting rooms were sanded over after being scoured with sand and water. So the sand is cleaning the floors too. The sand, when the floor was dry, was scattered all over the floor, and the next day was carefully and lightly swept into a herringbone shape, this looking quite pretty. This custom was widespread, more than we now realize, undoubtedly accounts for large accumulations of sand frequently still found when old floorboards are lifted up for repair. The great American textile industry, which was to bring woven carpets into all classes of American homes, did not really get underway until a relatively late date, the decade between 1825 and 1835. This far-reaching development was accelerated in New England by two significant factors: business expansion following the closing of the War of 1812 and congressional enactment of two protective tariffs during the 1820s, which made it possible for domestic made carpets to compete in price with foreign goods. Interesting. Without having all of the laws and rules from Britain superimposed on colonists, as soon as that war was won in the 1770s, 1776, we not only rewrite our cookbooks, dictionaries, school books, and all of that, street names, and all of that stuff, but we also change the rules about what can happen. We don't need anybody telling us we can't mint our own money anymore. We do. And we don't need anybody telling us that we have to follow the rules of import, export, and buy stuff from there. We can make it ourselves now, right? Because no one is the boss of us at this point. No offense to our British friends who I love, but funny change of dynamic here, right? It's like in a way they must have felt like the inmates were running the asylum, but from the point of view of an American person, I think living at that time, what a boon it must have been to be able to start industry, right? Because we're coming with our industrial revolution, the American industrial revolution, a little bit later than the one that happened in London, obviously. So let's look at some carpets for a while, and then let's talk again. We left off with an interesting carpet last week, and I think I still have that in the show. So let me bring us. This is the one we left off on. Oh, Kirsten, great to see you. Just a reminder, I said it at the beginning of the show, Kirsten. Immediately following this show at noon, Kirsten is running the hook in, right? So you've got a back-to-back double feature today. You can hop right from one to the next. Oh, great. I'm just catching up on the comments. This is the image we left with, and this is the image that's behind me today. This is the Sargent family, Sargant. Any relation to John Singer Sargent? I don't know. I'm guessing yes, but I don't know how. And that I don't know that family tree, but it's a beautiful portrait and an anonymous painter. But we were talking about the carpet on the floor and about and behind the man in the room that's through the door. We were talking about the possibility of these being sort of raffia or some kind of plant fiber tiles that have been pieced together as opposed to a carpet. And we were looking at some images when we left off from Gillette Castle, which is in East Haddam, Connecticut. William Gillette's, the famous stage actor, his home, and all of the straw mats that he bought in the American Victorian period from catalogs and used on walls, not so much floor. It looks just like the carpet in this. Oops, I made a mistake. In this image. That was our last image. So that brings us to this image. Now, if you go down the rabbit hole and start looking up early American paintings, you will be so, I think, thrilled and amazed at the amount of color and beauty, the layering of things here. Now, in the description that we just heard, that we just read from, not the one from the 19th century, but the one that went to, 1796, we were hearing about how, I'm sorry, no it wasn't, it was the one from 1880, sorry, the one from 1880 that I just read. The writer was talking about Concord, Massachusetts, and was talking about how many rugs there were all over the floor, right? They were just scattered. Other writers from this period have noted that there are just so many carpets that they are actually overlapping. This really would fit the Victorian aesthetic too, wouldn't it? You know how they loved more stuff was better. How about more stuff on top of the more stuff that you can't even fit in the rooms? Better yet. And then how about a little more stuff? Perfect, right? Do you have any more? So the Victorian aesthetic was like lots and lots and lots and lots. At that time, with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, how about quantity over quality, right? Because it was the first time that was even a choice. So a lot of people went for quantity, right? I'll have some more. So a lot of houses we see from this period, and this is an exception, were houses that were filled with scattered carpets, overlapping and all over the place. Houses that were a little bit more stately, wealthier families, more money to spend, they would be way more inclined to buy wall-to-wall carpeting, or at least carpets that almost hit the walls. You could get measured carpets that would hit the walls, right, that were made for that specific room, like modern wall-to-wall carpeting. But you could also get a giant carpet that just was like an inch shy of where your wall would end. But if you were wealthy and you had more money, you would want more carpet, like not a bunch of small ones, right? But like big ones. So in some of these portraits, we are seeing carpets that are obviously enormous. Whether they're wall to wall or not is impossible to know because the painter has made a painting that probably is not exactly true to life. It might be, but they often weren't. We have a genre of portraiture, and that includes group portraits that are called lying portraits in the art world. And that means that they are filled with little details that weren't actually there. But it's usually not huge stuff. It's usually, for example, jewelry or lace that would be on a woman's clothing. Sometimes the portrait is lying in that, telling a lie in that the jewelry never belonged to that family, but the traveling artist had props, a case of props, and you could put it on and he would paint you with it too for a little extra money. Now carpets fall into a different category because from everything that I've read from this period, it was possible for painters to paint the carpet while they were not in the room with the family. So they typically painted from life and would paint the family in person. Sometimes sketch and then do the painting like back at the room that they were renting at the tavern and finish it without the family being there. Like you would not expect the family to sit indefinitely for you, right? Particularly with children. It's just not going to happen. So the painter would typically take a likeness and then go on and work on it and then bring it to them and say, for your approval, are you buying it? And hopefully it would be a yes, or you need to change something or whatever. Um, because there were not a lot of people doing this at that time, people were not super discriminating. Oh, I look fat in that picture. There seems to have not been lots of that. Because and hence when you do look at pictures from this era, and I know it's like there is a difference in our ideal of beauty from then to now, but you do often get men and women who are distinctly unattractive, and it does make one think that's more than just an outmodish look, right? That's a horse face person, right? So it does make you think. People were like very happy to have their portrait, right, with very few rules associated with it. One of the things a painter could do is just make up a pattern, right, for a carpet or for the walls and things like that. Not necessarily, it would be different from painter to painter and painting to painting, but some real jack trippers. That's true, Catherine. That's so true. All of those layered carpets, every one of those is a jack tripper. Yeah. So we're not really sure from portrait to portrait if and this would have wait a minute, no, hold on, let me attribute this one, sorry. This one I don't know whether this portrait was in the house, but at the end of the day the information that we're seeing here, let me give you a date for this, is that this would have been a carpet that was in style when the painting was painted. And the painting was painted, I'm just looking at my phone, hold on, let's see, yep, there it is. This is okay, so unknown painter, but it says it was of the American school, right? So that's not super helpful. This is 19th century, so that's not super helpful either. And it is the Merrill family in an elegant room. So we know who the family is, but we don't know who the painter is or what the year was. So this could have been the Merrill's carpet, or perhaps it wasn't. It's very hard to say. But I'll tell you, it's a beautiful carpet at the very least. It's a beautiful carpet. It's almost like a pomegranate pattern, I think. At least that's what I'm seeing. Very stylized floral that does have a strong geometric feel to it. So beautiful carpet for that time. This one is, let me find this one. This is a cute portrait. Okay, this is, oh, wait a minute, wrong one. Hang on, still struggling. Okay, no, wrong one, wait a minute. I pulled all these up on my phone. I had to look at them all. I had to look for them separately so that I could attribute, but it was hard going on this weird internet search. Okay. American school, again, 19th century, not helpful. So we know nothing about this specific portrait. It is just an interior domestic scene. So here's an example of what looks to be a wood floor, and there is a large carpet, but it's not large enough to reach the walls. So this would still be regarded as an area rug or a smaller carpet, but it is a beautiful family portrait. And I mean, again, they're so charming. They're showing you their best stuff, right? Like here's the child, here's the children. I mean, the ones on the couch and the little ones sitting. We know that painters from this era were either excellent at capturing children or not so good, right? The two on the couch, a little bit red room happening there, but the adults look a little bit more fit and well. Super charming. I would love to have this piece. I'm not making fun of it. It's just it is naive and it's folky, right? And there lies the value. My particular two things in this that I really like: the cat looking away with the bow. So it's obviously a beloved family pet. The woman in blue on the couch seems to be looking through that open doorway, like she's very stiff in the way that she's seated. But both her, the child on the carpet, and the little boy that's kind of hiding tucked into the curtain, they all seem to be looking, and the cat, at something in the room that we can't see. There's someone arriving at the door, and we see that there seems to be some kind of a servant receiving them, but they seem to be looking at something else in the room, and that's a bit spooky. This would be great for the cover of like a collection of ghost stories, wouldn't it? I also love that elaborate piece of crystal on the table that's about to fall off the edge. And I love that painting over it because it seems to be showing the family before the last child was born and how companionable they are, like all holding hands. Super, super, super cute. I guess that would be the two older children in that portrait. Anyway, super cute. And we are seeing a glimpse of a carpet that is just very basic repeat pieces. It could be pieced together with a border added with only this much information. Even standing in front of the actual portrait, I bet it would be very hard to tell. But we are looking at the style of carpet that would have been popular, and that's as much as we can know from that portrait. This is another example of, the idea that the local or itinerant portrait painter would be very good at painting children is a leap. This is another American school painting, so done in New England, but we don't know who it was. It's early 19th century, and it is a portrait of a girl. It's an oil on canvas. It's very hard to know the girl's name. I'm sorry, age, the date. If she's like an infant with a lot of hair, right? Because she has pierced ears, but that's not really a clue. They're not pierced, they're clipped. But she's wearing jewelry, which is not a clue. I would have thought that it could have been a boy because typically with portraits, if the part of hair is in the middle, it often is a boy, but this is clearly a girl because we're seeing the jewelry that she's wearing. And she's holding roses, and boys typically hold toys and other like arrows and things like that that are a bit more of the sexist cue giving genre. But it's hard to tell what her age is. It could be that she's quite young. It could be that she's like, a teenager. I'm thinking by the costume that she's quite young, mostly because she's seated on the floor. That's the biggest clue. If she were a little bit older, they would at least give her this sort of dignity of allowing her to stand up and not be sitting on the floor like one of the pets. But it is a lovely portrait, right? Maybe we differ on that because it does have a spooky quality because of the proportions. But we're here to look at the carpets, and the carpet is really different. It is very cool. It's very modern. We have not hit the Victorian period at this point, not even the early Victorian period. So we are still looking at like the Georgian aesthetic, which was very austere and an unusual color palette. It's hard to say, but to me, this looks like black, kind of a gold, ochre, kind of a gold, and maybe like a greenish turquoise. It's hard to tell what that darker value is, but it's a very cool carpet and unusual. Like it's a hard carpet to work into a composition because it's so shapy. Do you know what I mean? It works well like this when there's just a little bit of it showing, but if it was in one of the other portraits with the whole family, I think it has potential to be confusing. The only reason that I mention that is because if you're going, oh, I like that carpet the best, I'm going to work it into one of my designs. Just be careful. Definitely work it into one of your designs, but just be careful because it's so odd. It's such an odd pattern with just the little kind of squared ovals, but lots of them. It almost looked like the Pez factory malfunctioned, and there's all these giant Pez all over the floor. It's an odd pattern, but you do get odd patterns in this period. It's all part of textile history. These would be loomed rugs that were at this point still from Europe or the East. These would not be rugs that were homemade yet, right? These would be, unless we're talking about small strips that are sewn together. And again, it's impossible to see by looking at these photos. But most rugs at this time are still imports. Let's talk about Turkey carpets in the next episode. So that will be next Monday. Let's talk about Turkey carpets, because a Turkey carpet isn't what you think it is. You're thinking it's a Turkish rug that came from Turkey, right? Um, and that makes a lot of sense, and maybe it ought to be, but that's usually not the case. Turkey carpets is a term that usually refer to all Eastern carpets, because one of the ports that you would always stop at with boats coming from the U.S. would have been Turkey. And when you got to Turkey, you would have found back in the day lots of people who were meeting you halfway, who had come from further east and had come to Turkey with their stuff to sell. So when you stopped at Turkey, you would get items that were made in Turkey, but you would mostly get items that were made from countries that were further east, right? And they had just brought them to Turkey to meet the boats. Not all boats would go further, but boats that were stopping in Turkey, or boats that had different routes, sellers and manufacturers from the Far East wouldn't necessarily take the gamble that all of the boats are going to go all that way, and would often come into Turkey, stop with the stuff that they made. And then it becomes impossible to know, or to be able to make the distinction at all, between rugs from this period that arrive in American homes, whether they were made in Turkey or bought in Turkey, if you see what I mean. So that's its own conversation. That's as much as I'm going to say about that. But we'll start talking about rugs of foreign manufacture, and then pretty quickly rugs of American manufacture next Monday, when we return to this conversation about early floor coverings. I want to log off right now. I'm already 1 minute late, and Kirsten is waiting to run her hook in. So I'm going to log off. If you go into our Facebook group, which is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, you will see Kirsten's post is featured on top, or click featured, and you see the main new posts that are of note at this moment. That will be one of them. You can leave me here, log on to her there, get your project on your lap, and enjoy some time together with that group of hookers while I get back on the computer and start putting our book together. I will see you on Sunday for gallery night. Send me your stuff. Thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much for reminding me. Big shout out to Patreon members always. I'm going to go. I will speak to you all soon. If you want me in the meantime, ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com.